my name is Sierra Meszaros. I am a student at the University of Chicago Divinity School, and I am honored to be able to enter this video into the Black Shakespearean database featuring incredible actor and Tony Award winning actor Chuck Cooper. And we're just going to launch in. Thank you again so much for being a part of this project and allowing us to profile you, not only to expand the way that folks in our country think about Shakespeare, but also to create more opportunities for Black artists across the board, not only when it comes to Shakespeare, but theater in general, as well as film and television. So this is a really great opportunity. So we previously had some questions, so I'm just going to throw it out there. So, you've been in this business for some 30 years and have been, like I mentioned, recognized for your performances in plays and musicals, including The Life, Choir Boy, and The Piano Lesson, receiving a Tony Award for your portrayal of Memphis in The Life. And you have even had the opportunity to work with your Tony-nominated daughter on a number of different projects. When you were at the beginning of your career, did you imagine where your art would lead you? And what was it that initially drew you to stage and screen?
Wow. Well, the short answer is no. I had no idea that I would be sitting here today speaking to you, being so profoundly grateful for a career that has really has done things and achieved things that I had no idea were within the realm of possibility for me. That said, it happened. Oh my God! I got to live a life as an actor in the theater and kind of make my way. um, what originally got me into this? Well, let me first say that as a young high school student, uh, about to graduate from high school and going to college, and facing the "what am I going to do" question, I only knew one thing very firmly in my mind and in my being, and that was that whatever it was that I chose to do as a vocation, uh, I wanted it to be something that was fun. My father worked for United Airlines as a porter, and as a black man in America carrying people's bags at the airport, it was not the most fun job in the world, to say the least. Um, it afforded him travel because he had passes and on the airlines and whatnot. And there were, it was a decent paying job, but the social aspect of it was horrible, and he hated it. And it was clear when he would come home from work that he hated it. And I figured that you spend a lot of time at work, and so it should be something you'd like to do. And so my father also was acted in community theater in Cleveland. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. And so I was always familiar with the theater and went to the theater at a very early age. And as a matter of fact, I often say that I was brought up in the theater because I went to nursery school in the theater that my father and my mother acted in. It was called the Caramel House in Cleveland, Ohio. It was a settlement house, so it was a part theater, part community center. It's just a place for the community to come together and be together and do different projects together. So when I went away to college, it just so happened that in my freshman orientation, when you go down there just before school starts and you fill out the form about what your interests are and whatnot, and they try to. I was undecided, so they try to guide you towards something that you might be interested in. The advisor for my group happened to be a professor in the School of Theater, and upon looking at what I had done in high school, I sang in the choir in high school. It was an amazing choir because you had to audition to get in, and I got in and we toured the country and made albums and not CDs, albums, and and um, and so he suggested that I try the freshman track in the School of Theater. I thought, oh wow, it never occurred to me uh, that you could do that. I had originally gone there thinking tacitly that I might try the School of Radio, Television, and Communication to be a disc jockey because I thought I play records all day. That's fun. But so he made the suggestion about the theater department. I thought, well, that's interesting. That could be fun. And you can make a living in the theater as an actor. wow, that I didn't really know that.
Mm.
And I knew there were movie stars and TV stars and all like that, but the theater. But so I did it. I took acting 101, dance 101, movement 101, and in the freshman track, and loved it. Had a great time. Um, uh, Met with some early success, and so that was really the springboard for the journey that brought me to this moment we are now in. I went through the professional actor training program at Ohio University. Auditioned in my sophomore year to get into the studio, which was a conservatory program, pretty intense, where I was trained to be an actor. And upon graduation, I took the leap and moved to New York to try to be an actor, and it worked.
The dream.
I started living the dream. It's so funny because when I first moved, I moved in '76, the bicentennial year,
Mhm.
um, and I gave myself 2 years to get my equity card. Now there were upperclassmen who had graduated, a year or two ahead of me that I knew who had already started their careers in New York and whatnot. And one of them recommended me to audition for a children's theater company called, back then it was called the Performing Arts Repertory Theater. Today it is called TheaterWorks USA. It's one of the largest children's theaters in the country. And so she got me this audition. The first week I was there, they hired me, and I got my equity card the first week I was in New York. So I got a job. I literally put my bags down, went to the audition, got the job, did the rehearsal, and I was off on the road doing children's theater all across the hinterland. The first show I did for them was Young Mark Twain, where I played an ex-slave named Jim and had some fabulous song. And then I did Freedom Train, which is the story of Harriet Tubman, and toured all around with that. And that then led to regional theater work, and then and it was just like a little
Wow.
breadcrumbs along the journey, and um, met people, and it always turns out that it's who you know is who.
Mhm.
Um, and so one friend would say, "Hey, there's this audition over here," or one friend would say, "Oh, I just recommended you for this thing," or kind of like that, and it just blossomed into the garden that is my career.
That's so that's like such an incredible story. I started doing theater in high school and I was watching all of my friends getting ready to audition for college. And there's a part of me that regrets that I didn't just stick it out and like follow through, but I felt like I got into it too late and that I was too old and that there was no like changing tracks. But that's like neither here or there. But I think the journey that you've been on potentially speaks to a particular moment. And I'm wondering from your perspective if you feel like the way that folks communicated when you were starting out your career, potentially a shared sense of success when people that you're connected to do well and you're sharing names. Do you feel like that's something that's changed over time in the theater world, or is like how have you seen sort of the theater world change since you got
Oh
started?
my, oh
I
my
know that's
God.
an
Well,
massive question.
I mean, consider this. When I got my first job with TheaterWorks USA in children's theater, there were no cell phones. There were no computers.
Right.
There was no internet. There was no social media. There was none of that. So when you got an audition, your agent would call your landline, or you would have to pay for a answering service, basically.
Mm.
So you pay for this service where they give you a telephone number. You give your telephone number to your agent. And when your agent wants to call you, they call this number and leave a message on the answering machine. Remember those things?
Vaguely.
And and that was one of the ways in which information was passed on. There were trade magazines that we would pick up every week. They published what was it, Backstage and Showbiz, and you would have to go to the newsstand, buy a newspaper, and leaf through the newspaper to see what auditions were there and what agents were perhaps looking for people or whatever. And there was much more. It seemed like there was much more listen, let's have lunch tomorrow and talk about whatever, and or why don't we get together and do a showcase? We'll pick some show, a couple of scenes,
Mm,
pool our money together and rent a theater and have an evening of short scenes and invite agents and this kind of networking situation went on back then.
mm.
Now, as I watch my daughter, and with so facile with all the social media platforms and the Instagram and the this and the tweeting and the it's, and now you can self promote. You don't, in a sense, you don't need anybody else. You can do it more by yourself. And so I think that's vastly different from the my beginnings. Um, I honestly can't imagine how a young person trying to get into the business now would approach it because it's so different. It's
Yeah.
such a different animal now. I when I moved to New York, my first apartment was a one-bedroom walk-up on 79th Street that I shared with a friend of mine from college, and the rent was $260 a month, and that was a lot.
Yeah.
That was like
And you had a whole
down
bedroom.
a whole bedroom, and we only had to walk up 4 flights of stairs. and and 260. Oh my God, how are we gonna make this rent?
Yeah.
130 bucks each. Uh, and now rents are thousands of dollars. You got kids 4 and 5 to a one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
Uh, I, I I don't know how they do it, but they still are trying, and still the beat goes on.
Yeah. I know many kids that I went to high school with that went on to like incredible performing arts colleges and really put in like the hustle and then went to New York. And, it's just been sort of a continued hustle, which I think like all good things come from hard work, or many good things come from hard work. But there is an element of luck to it today,
Oh my
and
God.
especially when it comes to self promotion over social media. Like you never know what's going to be the thing that makes you go viral, so you constantly have to be putting information out there. And I think it is a huge challenge. It changes the nature of networking. Like you're talking about building genuine relationships, and now we're talking about like putting on a face. That is a constant face, right? Like if you're performing, you're used to getting into different characters, and maybe that's fun. But what happens when suddenly your everyday life is this
Mhm.
constant putting on
Yeah.
different faces?
Yep. Yep.
It's kind of, it's very difficult. Anyways, we'll shift gears a little bit. So I want to bring us back to talking about Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And some of the roles that you've done. Most notably, in 2014, you starred in the onstage revival of Romeo and Juliet at the Richard Rodgers Theater on Broadway. And of the Shakespearean roles that you've had the fortune to play throughout your career, what have been some of your favorites and why those ones?
Hmm. That's a very good question. Um, well, the short answer is I have thoroughly enjoyed every time that I have been called upon to render my services in a Shakespearean production, and that is not true for a lot of the other stuff I've done. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because I had a profound sense of how rarefied it is for a black actor to get to do Shakespeare, especially when I was coming up. Um, uh, but there was also the work. There was also Mr. Shakespeare. Uh, he is exquisite. To sing his music, as I often say, is quite a joy. Um, eh, the universality of it, the scope of it, the depth of it uh, was just intoxicating to me. And so the artist in me, the actor in me, the human being in me, really responds to the work specifically. And so, if I had to say a favorite one, I'm going to go back to a production of Coriolanus that I was part of at the Old Globe Theater. which was directed by the late great John Hirsch. Um, Dakin Matthews was in it, who was, I think, one of our finest actors. Byron Jennings played Coriolanus. I played Tullus Ophidius, Coriolanus's arch enemy. And what was so significant about that production and why I hold it up uh, is because I believe that is where I actually learned how to perform Shakespeare. The director, John Hirsch, was a famous Canadian director, and he directed all over the world and was very lauded in his career. And he gave me this great part. And I remember early in the rehearsal process, I had table sessions, one-on-one table sessions with John Hirsch. No one else. That he would carve out, 1 or 2 hours in the morning, where he and I would go over the text and scour it and mine it
Mm,
and excavate it. And he taught me how to break it down into its component parts, so that I wasn't looking at a mountain, I was looking at a rock, and I could look at each rock that made up the mountain,
mm,
and therefore have a better understanding of what, in fact, the mountain really was. And so that experience was transformative. Then marry that with being on stage with Dakin Matthews and Byron Jennings, who were much more experienced than I, and I dare say, infinitely more talented than I. And to be able to observe them uh, in their process, how they digested it, how they donned their characters, as it were. And so that was an education process in of itself. And so the combination of my director being so fabulous and my fellow actors being so fabulous helped me understand where the bar is
mm.
and how to get over it. And so that production was pretty successful, and folks responded quite well to it. And and so that is the production that I would say um, has the most meaning for me.
Mm. Are there any characters in the Shakespearean canon that you have yet to play that you're excited about, or any characters that you would want to reprise?
I don't know about reprising any of them because most of them I'm too old to do now. But the one that I have yet to do that I would love to do is Lear.
Mm,
And I actually want to do Lear with my daughter. I think that
okay.
would be fabulous. Uh,
That would be a powerhouse powerhouse team on stage.
that
Uh,
would, that would. I respond so much to Lear uh, because uh, being where I am in my career, I'm I'm sitting up here in a home that my wife and I were able to buy on the lake, and I'm collecting my pension. And I won't say that I'm at the end, but I'm certainly not at the beginning.
mhm,
And so I have that 2020 ability to look back at the decisions of my life, both professionally and with my family. And when I look at a character like Lear, who begins the play divvying up his kingdom among his daughters, among his children, I I find a kind of synergy with that. I find a kind of
mhm,
understanding about what that is and how frailties and complexities and failings and gifts of a man can um, affect that decision and those choices. And so I find that very intriguing um, because he makes bad mistakes, and I have made bad mistakes,
mm,
and so I, I would look forward to the process of of healing that through
yeah,
examining.
that's amazing. Well, I would say that you have plenty of time left, and so somebody better snatch you up for that later. Um, I just have like a couple more questions, and I think zooming out to sort of any of the roles that you've played. Or maybe just thinking about moments in your life that have, or in your career that have sort of reflected, you know, the excited and fulfilled feeling, or any sort of like, I really did it. I really made it. And this is what is like success means to me. What has been some of those roles or those moments that have been the most fulfilling in your career?
um, I laugh at that because whenever that has happened, it hasn't happened very often, but when the one or two times when that has happened, I was quickly reminded that that is not the case.
What do you mean?
Okay, well, the first time it happened was a gazillion years ago, and the phone rings. I pick up the phone, and it's Douglas Turner Award uh, from the Negro Ensemble Company.
Mhm.
Negro Ensemble Company. Douglas Turner Award is calling me, and he asked my availability to come and do a Leslie Lee play called Color People's Time. They had lost an actor, and they were inquiring about my availability to come into rehearsal tomorrow, the next day. And so, in my young, naive brain, I thought, oh my God, I am going to do a play for the Negro Ensemble. Clearly, I have arrived. And I did the play. It was fabulous. I mean, the cast of that play, folks won't believe it. I mean, it was Sam Jackson. Uh, um, Angela Bassett was an understudy. Jack A. Harry, Debbie Morgan, um, who else? Chuck Patterson, who passed here recently. Just Juanita Mahone, an incredible cast.
Wow.
Okay, incredible. I mean, and they were, Sam was Sam. He wasn't Sam yet. He was, he's, another guy. We're doing this show, and we did it. It was whatever it was, and then it was over, and I found out that I had, in fact, not arrived. I had to get out there and start auditioning and doing the same old grind. It wasn't like people go, oh, he was in a Negro Ensemble NEC show. Let's get him. No, it wasn't that. So I amble on, and the second time it sort of happened was when I won the Tony Award, and I thought, well, come on, I I won a Tony Award. Clearly, that means I have arrived, right? I mean, that's the thing everyone wants to get
Mm.
is a Tony Award, right? And I got it. So I got to be all that in a bag of chips, right? Not exactly. So what I discovered was the Tony Award. Uh, it gives you a lot of visibility. It gives you a lot of you know people are aware. People kind of there's name recognition with it. But the funny thing is, people then often call you up to do benefits and to do these things for free because they want to have your name on their roster of people that are going to be on the benefits so that they can make money for whatever cause it is, and that's a wonderful thing. And I've enjoyed doing that, and helping out the Actors Fund or helping out whoever, some theater that needs to do a fundraiser or whatever. That's great. But when it comes to like a job where you expect your compensation to reflect your award, they tend to forget about that. They tend to all of a sudden have amnesia. It's like, oh, a Tony Award. And this is really funny. So I won the Tony Award, and then I went out to LA because I thought, okay, I'll go out to LA because I got a Tony Award, and I'll walk in and I'll just sit the Tony Award down on the desk and go, okay, what you got for me? Well, I'll never forget. I went to this one audition, and Hollywood thing is vastly different, and it's everything is by committee, and it seemed like the people on the other side of the table are like 5 years old in suits trying to be grown up, and this one guy said to me, "Well, so what's a Tony?"
What?
The Tony Award, the Antoinette Perry Award was. So what is that? I was nonplussed. I was like, wow, wow. Here this guy is sitting behind the desk, making huge decisions, giving people jobs that are life-changing jobs. These jobs where you make, $20,000 an episode or whatever, crazy, crazy money. And he really did not know what the Antoinette Perry Award was.
You're like, way to knock me down a peg. Shoot.
Right, right. But as I look at, as I think about it, it's a good thing. It's a good thing because, I was Chuck before I got a job at NEC. I was Chuck after that. I was Chuck before I got a Tony, and I was Chuck after that. And that taught me that I just have to be me.
Hmm.
I just have to be me, and I just have to do what I can to further myself in my career, or my personal good. And the external things that contribute or detract from that are out of my control. I can't do anything about those things. I bless them and I release them. And so it was sobering, but it was also uh, affirming in a sense because it made me as I said before, it made me realize that who I am is a product of what I endeavor to do,
Hmm.
and that's what's important. That's what is uh, enduring, and that will feed the future. As it will.
It's kind of the truth of life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Be you.
You're exactly where you are.
Yeah.
You're not anywhere else.
Yeah. That's something that I've, struggled with as I'm, starting my career, or I don't know, deigning to start a career in an economy that is difficult to begin in, but trying to figure out, where do I want to be and what is going to be, and so but I think it's like it's a constant struggle, right? You come back to it. You come back to needing to remember that
Mhm.
you are who you are, and that is in some ways your superpower.
Right, right. Well, it's many things in life have that duality, uh, like breathing.
Yeah.
We breathe in and we breathe out. There's daytime and there's nighttime. There's this flux, this ebb and flow to the universe. And what is most advantageous is to learn how to be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
How to learn, you must learn how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you must learn how to be comfortable with comfort,
Yeah.
and understand that the only constant in the universe is change.
You could say that again. So my last question is just thinking about, the future, and we're right on this sort of precipice of uh, getting back to normal after the last couple of years. And I think there's many elements that sort of define this past year and a half, between COVID-19, sort of our country going through a national racial reckoning, something that reckoning, which has, I think, really impacted the theater, and particularly the Broadway community, with campaigns like We See You White American Theater, folks coming out about their experiences working as actors of color in different productions, particularly some productions geared more towards actors of color, or seemingly geared more towards actors of color. So I'm sort of interested in, are you ready for theaters to reopen? And what is your sort of hope that the theater community will, and learnings that the theater community will take with them into this sort of new era, if we can call it that, but it feels like a new era, right? As everything's sort of reopening at the same time, of how do we mark this transition as different?
Right, right. That's a fabulous question. Let's let me first say that I hope we don't get back to normal. Normal actually wasn't working that good.
Mm-hmm.
There's improvements to be made, and I don't say that to say that things are horrible, or they're bad people, or whatever. I just say that because there's room to be better,
Mhm.
a lot of room to be better, and we should avail ourselves of this opportunity to do so. Am I ready for the theater to open up? Oh my God, yes. I miss it. I think the society and the world at large misses the energy of live performance.
Absolutely.
I think the energy of live performance extends beyond the walls of the theater. I think that the energy dynamo that happens when a group of people come together in single purpose to present something, and another group of people come together in single purpose to witness. And when that gyration occurs, something really unique happens, and I
Mm,
think it can only happen uh, in live performance. There is a certain rarefied kind of empathy that is created, and I think that empathy, that the energy of that, seeps out beyond the walls of the theater
absolutely.
because both the artists and the audience experience this thing together, and then they go out into the world and they carry that with them. They carry it with them, and it affects things in tiny minute ways.
Mhm.
In the same tiny minute way in which drops of water in the ocean affect the erosion of cliffs. In the same tiny way in which a zephyr of wind can change the landscape over time. And so, yeah, we're ready for it. I'm ready for it, and it will be different because as we know, everything changes, and COVID has had an effect.
Mhm.
Um, George Floyd has had an effect. Um, People can see more. Some people can see more. Some people see less.
Yeah.
but but the folks who can see more will will have no choice but to act.
Yeah.
Um, uh, People in power have been made to see things and will be made to see things. People will be less uh, quiet when something is not right, less willing to accept something is not right,
Yeah.
and there will be mistakes. People will go too far, but the the needle will move. The evolution of the species will continue and evolve. Um, I I often like to say, way back when we were apes up in the trees, there are only a few apes that said, I think I'm gonna climb down on the ground and see what's out there. And that few are the ones who lead.
Mhm.
That few who have that exquisite characteristic of curiosity. Between curiosity and empathy, there's nothing we can do, can't do.
Yeah.
And so I feel that the tragedy, the horrible suffering of COVID will be met by a balancing energy. And I look forward to seeing the fruit.
Me too. Well, I think that is a beautiful end point. So thank you very much for your time and for sharing your story with us. I'm going to stop this recording.